Welcome to the Downtown Download virtual podcast, where we hear from our members and learn something new about downtown Madison. This podcast is brought to you by the law firm of Carlson Black, O'Callahan, and Battenberg, located in downtown Madison. Carlson Black specializes in commercial real estate, business, and tax law. Carlson Black is proud to represent many DMI members in helping to build a vibrant and inclusive downtown. Today's guest is Linda Ketcham, Executive Director of MUM, Madison Urban Ministry, an organization serving as a prophetic voice for justice in our community for over 4 decades. Welcome, Linda. How are you this morning?
All things considered, pretty good. How about you, Jason?
All things considered, the same. It's certainly been a very tough time, and there's been a lot of pain in our community. I think that's a great place to start. You know, the world has changed so much recently. With the pandemic, with the recent events in the last 10 days, so many in our community are in pain. One of the main works and goals of MUM is in social justice. How has your work helped, and how have you really changed your organization since the recent events in the last few months?
Well, it's been a challenge in the nonprofit sector. You can always have an emergency and a disaster plan, but you can never really fully plan for a pandemic, right? Because you don't know what it might look like. You don't know what you need to do to keep people safe. So, but as an organization, our Healing House program, which is a 7-day, 24-hour-a-week emergency shelter for families experiencing homelessness who have a member coming out of the hospital. We've been up and running the entire time. So it's shelter. And so we have, that's been a challenge, keeping families safe, keeping staff safe, trying to get the PPE that we need, but we're open. Our Just Bakery program, a lot of people might be familiar with. We've gone entirely, initially virtually online, teaching our students, but that required also getting them the technology that we needed and they needed. So we've been able to do that, but the kitchen has opened back up now, and we have students back in the kitchens learning to bake. One of the things that we did, we looked at the pandemic and we looked at shortages in the community for food, and we realized that we had a commercial kitchen that we could raise money to bake bread for the pantries. So we have been baking 200 to 300 loaves of bread a week for delivery to some of our food pantries in the community. And one way that we can give back to Madison and Dane County, because Madison and Dane County have been good to the Just Bakery program. It's a vocational training program. All of our reentry programs have continued to operate, but virtually for the most part, but we are still seeing some people face to face. All of our circles of support were Zoom and conference call meetings, and now they're starting to ease. Some of them are easing back into meeting in parks with everyone wearing masks. I mean, we've been very cognizant of the fact that because here at MUM, we like to walk our talk, and so many of our staff are people with lived experience with homelessness, with incarceration, people of color who are more vulnerable during a pandemic to all of this. So we've been very cognizant of how we keep both our participants and staff as safe as we can. Our mentoring programs have continued virtually as best we can, and our advocacy work. So we continue to work, housing this pandemic, and I'll get to more that's happening in the community, but the pandemic has really laid bare what's always been there, but I think it's made it much more visible to the entire community in terms of the racial and economic disparities that we have when it relates to access to healthcare, when it relates to paid time off for people from jobs, to care for sick ones, family members, sick loved ones. Just the ability to be making a living wage that allows you, when you're laid off or furloughed from work, to survive and have funds to pay for your basic needs, especially because we know the entire unemployment or compensation piece is kind of like, there's gaps in that we now see, right? Because we have people who still haven't gotten an unemployment check. They're eligible, they still haven't gotten paid. So how are they surviving? The other thing we've been doing is focusing a lot on direct assistance. We have an amazing donor who's made a gift. We're working with several area nonprofits who are referring people to the fund. And over the last, when we received the funds in May and just this past week, we've actually provided nearly $40,000 in rental and utility assistance some technology for people experiencing chronic homelessness who are in the hotels so that they can stay connected to family, telehealth, support groups, that kind of thing. So we've been learning how to be more nimble. We've been learning how to do everything differently. And one of the things that's a takeaway is that we have realized that there are things we can do long-term in terms of we can use online learning platforms for the bakery. We can use it for our youth programming. So we have our youth cohort for Just Bakery is coming up in July and August. And again, we're going to do it this time virtually. Normally we would have the kids in kitchen learning how to bake, but they're going to bake from home and they're going to work with our instructors online. So they'll be getting gift cards to purchase the ingredients they need for their cooking at home with the instructors. We're getting donated, and that's something that, you know, folks can help with. We need donated technology to make sure they can log on. And then the kids, when they finish the program, they get $1,000 training stipend. So we're hoping that that's helpful too. So that's a little bit the advocacy piece, and particularly in terms of what we're seeing with the murder of George Floyd, I think is how do we support protests? How do we as an organization effectively work for systemic change? One of the things that we've been involved in for the last 4 years, I served on the Madison Police Department Ad Hoc Committee on Policies and Procedures. So one of the things that we're focusing on that's a piece of systemic change is pushing on the council and the mayor to keep moving forward on the 177 recommendations listed in that ad hoc committee report, including independent monitor and civilian oversight board, both of which in the month of June and July will be some resolutions related to those coming before the council. So we've done that. We continue to push on housing issues, right? Housing is huge. We have thousands of people who are experiencing homelessness. The number is going to grow now that the moratorium has been lifted. So how do we also push on housing? How do we push on employment? How do we work with DMI, with your members? How do we work with the larger business community in a number of ways? One is offering the people we work with who are coming back from prison and jail, how do we offer them employment opportunities, mentorship, and mentorship that really looks at professional development and entrepreneurship, right? How to be a manager, how to move into those roles. How do you create a safe space as an employer for people who have lived experience with so much trauma? How do you understand kind of their experiences and what kinds of things in the workplace may be spoken or unspoken rules that maybe they don't know? Microaggressions. How do you deal with, you know, the 23-year-old Becky or Karen from rural white Wisconsin who has never worked with people of color, who feels threatened in some way because of her own stuff? And how do you help her versus focusing on the person of color who maybe is your employee? So how do we work with businesses to make sure people are earning living wages and paid time off? We're helping right now someone whose husband has had a stroke. She works in healthcare. She works for a nursing home, but she has no paid time off, and she wants to be with her husband in the hospital. Fortunately, his employer in the nonprofit sector, he has paid time off, so he's got time, but still they're losing her salary. So how do we make sure that people who are working hard in businesses are able to care for themselves when they have something unexpected happen? So I had asked some of our staff yesterday during our all-staff meeting what I should share with you in terms of the business. How could DMI and the members help? And those were the pieces, really, of opportunities, doing, really helping employees and businesses understand what's happening with the protests right now, that this isn't about one incident. This is about 400 plus years of incidents. This is about the things that happen daily. I'll share. We had someone that we work with at Mom, a person of color, who was on a bus a couple weeks ago, and a white man came on the bus and spit on him, unprovoked. And our program participant, out of kind of self-defense in the midst of a pandemic, right, pushed the man away. Didn't push him down, but pushed him. Police get called, and The person that we work with, the person of color in that incident, is the person who gets put in jail on a probation hold while they investigate. Fortunately, the Metro driver verified that this is what happened, but the white rider didn't get picked up and put in jail. This is happening daily in Madison, but white Madison doesn't see it. But we have to understand, and we have to open our hearts and our minds and be willing to listen to the grief and the anguish and the rage of 400 plus years that has built up that we're hearing downtown in the protests. And how do we feel that? How do we understand it in terms of the context? What can we do? But how do we understand it in the context of someone's life, right? What happened in Monona with the Monona Police Department? And two young men of color living in a house, and someone calls the police and the police come in, guns drawn, and these guys are living there. And it comes out today that even though the police had said they knocked on the door, the body cam shows they didn't. They just opened the door and let themselves in. Again, the context. So why do you trust the police if you're a person of color when they said they knocked but they didn't? So, and that's white Madison's struggle. It's how do we change our behavior based on the true life experiences of our brothers and sisters of color, and stop, not dismiss it, not diminish it, but accept it for their experience and their reality in their day-to-day lives. And we've created those systems. So it's up to us to work hard to change those systems.
One area that I've always admired about MUM is that you are an action-based organization. I've had the good fortune of working with MUM while I was the general manager at Hotel Red, and their amazing program that brought us so many great employees into Hotel Red. We were always so thankful. But why I always thought it was so important is you took your ideas of social justice, these important concepts that we need to be talking about, that we're talking about more than ever since the murder of George Floyd, and also more than ever since COVID-19, which you're absolutely right, has clearly shown the disparate impacts that people are receiving based on the structure of our society. But MUM is an organization that has taken that fervor and that emotion and turned it into actual programs that can make a difference. You listed some of those there, but I would love to hear, how can communities that are part of DMI help MUM take their social justice and move it into action?
Well, I mean, part of it is just as Hotel Red did, and Short Stack Eatery is another great downtown business that works with us, hires our graduates from Just Bakery, our other students, other things, mentorship, right? Within our Just Bakery program, and this is one of the things Alex and Shade with Short Stack do so well, is they actually come in when our students at Just Bakery have to do a nutrition project and presentation, and we invite people in to come and score that, so they get comfortable with talking in front of public with their customers, right? That's part of customer service. Alex and Sinead come in, they're part of the review team that listen to those. They're part of our volunteer base that come in and conduct mock interviews with our students and help them understand, kind of, oh, this part was really good when you're interviewing. Maybe here you could talk a little bit about this. So there are ways that businesses can partner and volunteer and help our students. But a big part of it too is opening those doors of opportunities and opening those doors. We have 65% of our 32 employees here at MUM are people who have been justice system involved. So people with criminal convictions, people with incarceration histories. They're amazing. They're amazing employees. They're dedicated, they're committed, they work hard. We work hard to pay a living wage. So as an agency, and we want to up this, $15 an hour is our minimum base wage. Every one of our employees, whether full-time or part-time, earn time off, vacation, sick, and holiday time. Nobody should lose their housing because their child got sick. So working with businesses, so one of the things businesses can do is to look at their policies and make sure that people get paid time off, right? We as an organization, and I'm working with our personnel committee, I want to see, and this is up to each business, and there are some corporations that have done this. I want to see us cap what my salary can be in relationship to the lowest, right? I want to cap the difference so that I can't move forward unless everybody moves forward. That's the kind of organization and business we want to be, because nonprofits are businesses. We're actually in Wisconsin a huge part of the business sector across the state. So with billions of dollars, so we should be walking that walk too. And I think that's one of the things that we can work with employers and consult a bit with employers. And I know that Carmela Glenn from our Just Bakery program has been working with Alex over at Short Stack to do some presentations on what businesses can do in terms of creating safe and inclusive environments. But I think those are big things. I think businesses, again, can have a powerful voice with our Common Council and Mayor, and to push on some of the ad hoc committee recommendations. Some of the Dane County had just passed last night, the county board, a fines and fees commission that's going to start reviewing really how we are criminalizing poverty and homelessness. And the downtown community has to be part of that conversation, because a lot of the ordinances in my 14 years at MUM, a lot of the ordinances I've seen come that relate to that have come out of concerns expressed by the business community, and yet we haven't found a solution. We've just found a way to penalize people who are poor. So those are some ways I think the business community can engage in terms of some of that advocacy, but in terms of employment practices is huge. And with the racial disparities we have, understanding that if you have a hard and fast policy that you don't hire someone with a criminal conviction, you are basically disproportionately impacting people of color in the state because of those racial disparities. So from a systemic racism perspective, policies that say I won't hire someone with a conviction history are part of systemic racism. So.
I think you're absolutely right. We have to bring the downtown businesses into this conversation, right? Particularly the last point you talked about some of the criminalization that might be happening downtown. We need to look at this much more holistically and try to find ways to not criminalize what's happening in every instance downtown. I think the paths we've used in the past have not always worked, and we need to look at different ways of doing things. And we would love to have MUM and many other organizations take part. I also really want to note, I know a few years ago, you guys did great work on a sort of list of what businesses should be doing to be the best employers they can be. 7 different key areas, if I remember correctly. A wage at a certain level, access to healthcare, access to time off, all of these sorts of things. Why is that so important for businesses to really try to live up to those 7 tenets, which unfortunately I don't remember all 7, so hopefully maybe you can go over those again, but why are those important for businesses to really try to invest in those areas and in their people?
I mean, I can speak from why it's been important for us, right? When we treat employees, every employee is as valuable as every other employee. So if our CEO gets paid time off, it's a statement of the value and worth of an organization or a business that every employee gets paid time off. So for us, though, it's about people being able to keep their jobs in times of crisis. I mean, some of the things, you're right, and I probably right now on a Friday morning am hard pressed to think of all 7. Now that I blame it on being in my 60s. But I think it's the living wage so that people can afford housing in Madison. And we know as an employer, $15 an hour is not really a living wage in Madison for housing. It's not. But to start paid time off so that if somebody has a sick child, they can do exactly what we have as a society tell a parent they should do, which is take care of your family, right? But then we penalize people if they don't have paid time off. Healthcare benefits. What can you do? We here at MUM, we recognize, crises happen, financial crises happen for people. We implemented now almost 13 years ago, we implemented a payroll advance program so that if a staff person had an unexpected event in their life, they can get a payroll advance and they pay us back through payroll deduction. and they don't have to pay us back all at once. And it's not interest bearing, because I mean, that's the other piece we realize, right? And when in the business community looking at policies, is that people of color have been locked out of traditional credit access, whether it's for home ownership, whether business, credit cards, car loans, all of that. And so we didn't want our employees having to go to predatory lenders to be able to pay for an unexpected car repair. So, there are things that employers can do that can really help. And what it's done for us is it really means our staff tend to stay. We don't have a great deal of turnover. And we know that every time somebody leaves a position, it costs as an employer $2,000 to $3,000 to fill that position. So it's just a really good investment and an economical investment as a business to not have that turnover. But more importantly, it's an investment in all of our staff and, paid training too. If you have employees that, hey, there's this training here, and it doesn't have to be, it could be webinars, but we're going to give you 2 hours to sit at home and watch this. I think there are all sorts of things. Again, I'm not remembering all. So now I'm just making stuff up, Jason. But those are some of the things that we've implemented over the last 13, 14 years at Mom, and they have been really beneficial to us as an employer in terms of our job stability, in terms of how hard our staff work, because everybody's invested in the work at every level. The advocacy work, the direct service work. We look at our work at Mom and in the context of a United Church of Christ theologian, William Sloane Coffin, who once said, "Charity, yes, always, but never as a substitute for justice." And that's really kind of sums up what we do at Mom, that we will always have people in need for lots of different reasons. And so it's important to support people during those times of need. But in terms of some of the need that we see that is just based totally on systemic injustices, we need to be this charity. Homeless shelters are not justice, they're charity. Affordable housing and jobs that pay a living wage are justice. So if businesses are truly wanting to engage in the work of social justice, they're working toward paid time off, they're working toward living wages, they're working toward policies that value their employees at every level.
Linda, I think that is a wonderful place to sum up this conversation. Thank you very much for your
thank you.
Incredible leadership over the last 13, 14 years at Mom. And I'm sorry that I put you in a position to not be able to name.
That's all right.
That was on me. But in this time when so many people are in crisis or in pain, to know that there are community leaders like you, Linda, we are in a better place at Madison for having people like you. So I cannot personally, and from our organization, thank you enough for all you do. Your words today were prophetic, and they really will help move things forward. So thank you very much, Linda, for being here today.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back soon with another podcast. Hope you have a good rest of the week, and good luck and stay safe.